Mimi Roca is with me now, the former SDNY division chief, Ryan Goodman, our legal analyst, and Stephanie Grisham, the former Trump White House press secretary. So, Mimi, 3 days, 3 efforts, 3 failures. As Paula said, unclear what else they could try to do, but she laid out one possibility. They could try to go to the appeals court, fail, try to go to the Supreme Court, try to get a stay there on this case while immunity is decided. Is any of this realistic?
I think there's nothing that they can do in the New York courts that will stop this. I think the New York courts are repeatedly signaling, both the judge, the trial judge, the appellate division has already done this, and I believe the Court of Appeals will also, ruling very quickly on these repeated motions and appeals. They seem to be full steam ahead, that this is a real trial date and it's sticking. I think the Supreme Court is always a wild card here. I mean, we saw what happened with the immunity in the federal case. And so that one is a little bit harder to say that can't possibly happen if Trump brings it to the Supreme Court, if his lawyers do. But I really try to stay away from predictions when it comes to anything regarding former President Trump. But I think the trial's
going ahead on Monday.
Yeah.
Ryan, do you think that that Supreme Court wild card, as Mimi describes it, is there any possibility that comes in? Is that the final Hail Mary?
I think it is, but it's a real Hail Mary that's almost throwing the ball outside the stadium.
I like it. We're using all the religious and sports analogies we can in spite of everything. Go ahead.
Partly because the immunity question that he's raising is not the same as the Supreme Court is currently deciding, that he's immune from actually being tried, from prosecution. He's really trying to say, because of presidential immunity, some evidence can't be used against me. So that's not the kind of case that the court would take up pre-trial. So it'd have to be something so bizarre for them to address it. And it's not even a ruling on the merits. The judge actually just said, your motion is completely untimely. You had a time to do it, and then you waited until the last minute, even for me to suspect you have other motives for doing it. So they'd actually have to be appealing like, oh, we should have been able to submit the motion, not the question of immunity itself. So that just seems, he should throw the ball, but it's very unlikely
that it lands. All right, so Stephanie, the context of this, obviously Trump's legal team knows these aren't serious legal moves. They know that they're doing it obviously because he wants them to do it. So at this last moment, there's this frenetic desire to have this case delayed. So why is Trump doing that, Stephanie?
You know, so this case, many people have said is probably the least damning against him, and I don't disagree with that. However, this is very personal to him. This is an embarrassment to him with his family, and more importantly, with his wife Melania. And you know, I spent a ton of time with her when the news was breaking about Stormy Daniels when we were in the White House, and then of course with Karen McDougal, who's the former Playboy playmate, when those came out that he allegedly had these affairs. And she didn't take it lightly at all. We went to the State of the Union separately. She refused to walk out to Marine One with him because she did not want to be like Hillary Clinton and standing by her man. She's a very independent and strong woman. And I might add, there have been articles just recently that she's his secret weapon for this upcoming campaign. And so I would imagine that she is pushing him to make this stop. I would imagine that she will push him to go on the stand and defend himself. Because this is very, very embarrassing for her. It's humiliating for her. And I can guarantee you that she's not happy right now and that he's quite worried about that.
All right. So him going on the stand, Ryan, in this case, obviously he tries to make it about whether he did or did not sleep with Stormy Daniels. This case is actually about hush money payments, which were paid, as to whether they were done to influence the election, right? It's about something else. But nonetheless, he, because of what Stephanie said, is going to make it about that other thing, whether he did or didn't. Does he go on the stand?
I think he'd be in deep trouble. At one level, it actually doesn't matter whether or not they had an affair, because it's all about whether or not they were trying to silence her saying that they did.
It's almost, she or did they, right.
Yeah, and then we've seen him operate kind of on the stand under pressure in a couple situations in which it just didn't go well for him. So the E. Jean Carroll deposition does not go well for him. He actually attacks the woman lawyer who's representing E. Jean Carroll, and he repeats the Hollywood Access tape in front of her in a way that's just very bad for him and very damaging for him. And then in the civil fraud case, the judge actually says that when Trump was on the stand, he ended up being non-credible. He hurt his case. So I think it'd be very bad for him for that reason, but for personal reasons having to do with his wife, trying to win public attention or the public story or narrative, that's a different matter. But for a legal matter, he'd be in deep trouble.
In deep trouble. And that is ultimately what ultimately matters when it comes to the outcome. Mimi, there's also the issue, those social media posts. And I mentioned one of them where Trump, in complimenting Stormy Daniels' former lawyer, Michael Avenatti, who has now gone full board on Team Trump, slams Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen as, what were the words, sleazebags and liars and things like that. There's a little bit more that happened here. When I spoke to the director of the new documentary, we just saw Stormy Daniels speaking in that new documentary. I want to play more from it in terms of what Stormy Daniels described as to what happened to her after Trump was indicted in this case. And she was the name at the center of it. Here's what happened.
Back in 2018, it was stuff like liar, slut, gold digger. This time around, it is very different. It is direct threats. It is, I'm gonna come to your house and slit your throat. Your daughter should be euthanized. They're not even using bot accounts. They're using their real accounts.
So in that context, today Trump comes out and says what he says on social media. Is that a violation of the gag order? Is he putting Stormy Daniels, who's obviously going to be the witness at the center, one of the witnesses at the center of this, in real danger?
So I think the short answer is yes. In my experience, when judges make orders so specific as the judge did in this case, right? It wasn't just you can't say anything about anyone, which would be too broad. It was about the specific witnesses in the case, and that you can't say things that will cause intimidation and that will prejudice a jury. That's the other part of this. Yes, this can lead to increased threats, which are horrible, the threats she's describing there, against her, although I think those are going to happen regardless. But I'm sure there is a likely uptick in these after a post like this. But it also, we are now days away from a trial starting. The judge is trying to protect the integrity of the trial with the order.
Right.
The witnesses need to be judged by the jury that is starting to be chosen already because the questionnaires have gone out. The jurors need to judge the witnesses by their testimony in court with instructions from the judge. There's a process for a reason.
Yep.
And so Trump coming out and calling them liars is about as stark a violation as you can get.
And so, Stephanie, Trump knows that. Is he taunting the judge? Does he want to face possible jail and see if the judge will actually do it for violating these gag orders?
He definitely does not want to face jail. I can guarantee you that. But is he taunting the judge? Absolutely. He's had how many gag orders already? I know he got fined like $10,000 for violating it one time, but it's almost like some of these judges are bending over backwards so that he's not looking persecuted, where I believe, I could be wrong, the legal experts might know better, but other people would have been thrown in jail by now for so defiantly going against these orders from a judge. So he thinks he's not going to get any consequences because he hasn't so far, which is how Trump lives. Think about his whole life. He hasn't had any consequences so far. So he's going to keep doing it, absolutely, until there is an actual consequence like being put in jail for a day.
Stephanie, Mimi, Ryan, thank you all very much.